Hello everyone, I'm Ida.
Hi, my name is Dadmer.
And welcome to Sedaye Daneshjoo. Today we are going to be talking about something that you may or may not have experienced as a student and when it comes to making decisions about your future, and that is delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is the idea of giving up something now so you can have something better later. And while it sounds simple, when you actually think about it, it raises a lot of questions. So I guess for our first question, I'm going to ask is, when was a time you first realized that you were choosing between something in the future versus something you wanted in the present?
I think this is a very interesting topic to discuss, and it makes me go back to before medical school and when I was an undergrad. After applying for medical school in Canada a couple of times and not having success in the first couple of years, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, going into medicine and like trying again, applying again next cycle, for example, if I had to take the MCAT again, or do more things so that I can end up in medicine, it would have meant that I would have to like delay the gratification for a very, very long time. And at the same time, I was beside peers who, instead of going into a science degree, for example, they went into engineering, they went into chemistry, physics, and like different different non-biology topics. And seeing them graduate and get into the job market, start having a salary, it was at that moment that I was thinking to myself, do I want to delay the gratification any longer? Should I go, for example, work in a biotech company as a like a science, like a technician, for example, or should I keep trying for medicine and delay that kind of gratification and delay that like basically the later benefit, to take the later benefit as opposed to the benefit that I can take right now. So that was like the first moment that I was thinking to myself, like, do I really want to go through this route or the other route? And I ended up choosing to delay the gratification, but I don't know, maybe in another life I would have chosen another way.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough decision. I think reflecting back, I agree. There are a lot of times where, especially your peers, your friends, your loved ones, they choose a different path that, has like a different onset. Even in health, like I have some friends who chose to go to PA school, 2-year school. You start right after, and it gets the ball, or 2 or 3 years depending. But it's way different than 8 years. And I think for me, making decisions like that were difficult. I had a hard time processing that because I love traveling. There's a lot of things I like to do outside of my love for medicine. And it came down to, thinking about, well, how do I want my future to look? I personally took into account my own families and like, where is my family at now? What are my parents doing now? Just kind of thinking ahead, because it's like not everyone, some people might have different circumstances. And for me, it really came down to, I think in that situation, like, physician versus other members of the healthcare team, and understanding their role and knowing that that's something I wanted to do, like leading wise. But I always kind of struggled with that. But throughout my journey, I kind of realized that I don't have to completely give up all the fun right now. I could still, compromise and, have travel in between, maybe not like, go out far and wide, but some road trips, go out hiking, So that was kind of a learning thing for me to realize that, I shouldn't continuously be conflicting. I should be, confident with the decision I'm making. I always kind of struggle with uncertainty, and delayed gratification is difficult because, especially if your path is very long, you're not always fully certain that you're going to make it at the end or you're going to make it to a certain point. So there's a lot of, just to keep it real, there's a lot of internal thoughts I had during the time. So I also wanted to ask you do you feel like right now you're still living for the future, or are you still able to have moments in the present where you're able to enjoy?
I think, this is something that I've had to think about a lot over the past couple of years. And that is that do I want to keep pushing 100% for the greater good at the end, or do I also want to enjoy at the moment and basically have a life? Because especially in the field that I'm in medicine, there's a vast amount of knowledge that can be gained, and you can go days, months, and years studying different topics and learning about medicine, different parts of it, every little detail, and it just never ends. It never ends. So, do you want to go into that non-ending journey of trying to learn everything and sacrificing other parts of your life, or do you want to have a balance? Do you want to have a little bit of the social life, a little bit of a basically the enjoyment, the joy in life, and at the same time, since you find joy in medicine as well, also do that? And this is something that I've had to grapple with recently, and I think I've been able to try to enjoy my life better in the recent years compared to before, because I've had this realization. And yes, I want to be a very, very great clinician, a great physician, but at the same time, I also don't want to lose my social life. My social life, my friends, my family members, they're all important to me. And I don't want to lose sight of that. And I think that's an important realization that everyone will kind of go through as they live. And at the same time, I also think about, okay, like how many years am I going to live? How many years my peers are going to, my friends, my family members. It's a very dark realization, but it's a sad realization. But at the same time, it's real. It's you don't have unlimited time with your loved ones. And that was something that made me think about, I really want to skip this part of learning to be with my family. And I think that's an important thing because it avoids burnout. It basically lets you go further along because it's a balanced system. It's not just about learning medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think oftentimes when there is that burnout, it's the continuous push and not making time to really enjoy the basics in life and, making sure that those cups are full. And I also agree with what you said before about how, it's tough and there's always something to learn, especially in medicine. Every day there's new research coming out. I've had physicians tell me that even in the middle of their career and their families, they're always continuously learning, and they try to make time for a little bit of both. It's tough, but definitely manageable. It takes a while. You have to really get to know yourself, I think, when it comes to that. And I was wondering, now that you're going through this process, do you think, is there anything that you had to, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what are some things that you had to give up in order to pursue that?
I think the biggest one is time. You're basically giving up time that you could have spent with your loved ones, that you could have spent learning a new hobby. You could have spent playing a sport that you enjoy. You're giving up time by focusing only on one aspect of your life, and also you're putting all your eggs in one basket at the same time too. So you're giving up everything to be good at one thing, and I think it's very like that time that you're sacrificing is very important because right now, like I'm 27, and like in the next 50 years, like this is a limited time that I have. I'm not gonna be this young for much longer, and so I might as well enjoy the time that I have like with this like healthy body. And this is something that I do try to like instill in my friends as well, and especially some of my peers who are very anxious about medicine, anxious about like exams and like the future. That is valid. Those are valid reasons to be anxious for. But at the same time, I think it's important to change the perspective a little bit from time to time and try to reassess and see in life which parts are important and which parts are important to that person. And by reassessment, I think a lot of people will realize that, okay, what I thought was the worst thing in the world, or like what worst anxiety-inducing thing in the world, is not that big of a problem. So it puts things into perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you?
Definitely. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I love how you brought up encouraging your friends, and I did also want to say, like, you're definitely right when you are pursuing paths that do take that a longer journey than others. I do think it's important to definitely rely on your friends in that community. You're not alone in those paths. Usually at first when you're making the decision to do something like that, it can feel very lonely. But once you really get in it, you start talking to a bunch of other pre-meds, medical students, residents, and on forth, you can sort of build that community. And I think that's also really important, is to make those, intrinsic factors like changes, and also remember that the external factors exist as well, and that's talking to people who are going through the same thing and just maybe doing something with them, right? Because they're also in a similar situation in terms of time and how busy they are, and it won't be the same as reaching out to a friend who took a different journey and is like, hey, let's go like backpacking for a whole week, like in, I don't know, like Canada or Europe. But I also think it's important to keep in touch with those friends, all balance, of course, everything. But I think in those communities, it's important to rely on each other for sure. I think also when I think about delayed gratification, what comes up in my mind was I took 3 gap years before I applied to medical school. And I really wanted to apply after my 2nd gap year, but I just wasn't in the position to do so. And I was really struggling with that 1 extra year, which is sort of silly when I look back on it now, because in the grand scope of things, it's just 8 years. It's 8 versus 9 years. But at the time I was really struggling. I said, I don't want to be 1 year behind. I just want to get to my goal faster. And I think in that time period, I had a lot of anxiety looking back at it. And I really was struggling because sometimes that journey can take a while and it can look different for everyone, depending on like circumstances, like where you're at with school, classes. So I also just wanted to say, like, if you're ever, having a hard time and you're feeling anxious in those decisions, really think about the bigger picture. Think about what your end goal is. How much do you really want it? And if, you know, in my circumstance, for me, taking that extra year benefited me a lot, and that's something I needed to reach my end goal. And like, I think if I asked like my high school self, like, what would you do? She would probably say like, take the extra year you need to. Otherwise, like, we're gonna have a harder time, like reapplying, all that stuff. But I think in the moment, it's all about, you know, really asking yourself, like, how bad do I really want this, but like in a healthier way. And also remembering like the purpose, and that purpose and what you want to do towards the end was also important for me. Asking a lot of opinions was also important on that topic, I will say. Asking friends, families, professors. Really talking to mentors was really helpful when it comes to like taking a longer journey with delayed gratification. I was wondering, how have your mentors helped you throughout this whole process?
And this is, yeah, I think I've only had recent interactions with mentors who we've actually like talked about this very recently. And I think like the main one is my internal medicine mentor, Dr. Danesh, who we basically we talk about a lot of aspects of medicine together, not just the clinical aspect of medicine, but also the what does the life of an internal medicine doctor look like, for example, and or like how does the job market look like, and what are the different like schedules, and as a hospitalist, what are you supposed to do, what are your responsibilities, and during these conversations with him, I've come to realize that this change in what's important in life is very common, and and just by reassessing your life and what you're doing, you can kind of suss out which parts are more important right now. And this is subject to change. And what I think we've discussed before is that what you're passionate about changes. And it's very important to realize that, and that's okay. It's okay for your passion to change. And that basically, the reason why I'm saying this is because by changing what you're passionate about, you can put your focus in different parts of life. Yes, you can do different parts of medicine, for example, or you can focus on like education, like educating people regarding medicine, which is not itself like medicine itself, but it just depends on what your passion in life is and how it changes throughout, and be open to that passion changing. This conversation made me think about it during an undergrad, when like how many parties I've missed out because I had to like stay home and study, or not even study. Sometimes I had to stay home and rest, and like I think now that I look back at it, I'm like, yes, like I would have enjoyed those parties, those like birthdays and stuff. And I was at the time like I was kind of sad that I wasn't invited to this because I never go to these parties, for example. And when I look back at it, it is sad, but now I'm like, okay, that didn't really matter. Like attending one more party or like two more parties or birthdays, it didn't matter at all. Like when I look back at it right now. So I guess another point that I want to make is that like those those aspects of life that you think are important that at that moment, and by delaying your gratification you would have to sacrifice those. Sometimes those are only important at that moment. Those those only feel important at that moment, and later on you'll realize after all it wasn't that important. So yes, like we are very much saying that, oh, like, yeah, delaying gratification too much is not good, and this realization to focus on other aspects of life is important. However, the other part also exists, like the other extreme also exists, that if you're only focusing on the other aspects of life and not your goals, you can't expect you to reach your goals. So I guess it depends on what's more important to you. Do you want the greater benefit at the end, or you want the enjoyment right then and there? Which is a very, very hard balance, and I can see a lot of people struggle choosing between these two. But I just want to make sure the other part is clear as well.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I liked what you said when you were discussing with your mentor about it and going through. I think when I look back at my experiences with my mentor, I always remember that she really instilled that purpose and the mission for why I'm pursuing this. And always working with my mentors, I do a lot of projects, research projects with my mentors. And I think it's not exactly the same as like medicine, not per se. Maybe to the viewers, you might be like, though that's like the same area of research as like science, but it was more public health research. That's why I'm saying that. But it tied into my purpose and why medicine and why I wanted to do that. And I think, and those projects were actually fun. Maybe I'm a little nerdy for saying that. Those projects were actually fun, and you can have fun throughout the journey is what I'm trying to say, while like reaching your goals at the same time. And I think it comes down to really identifying what are your interests and like what specifically are your niches, and like I think public health was something I really cared about. Cancer disparities was something that I really cared about. So I kept pursuing that throughout my journey for medicine. I could have taken different routes. I could have focused more on like pediatrics. I could have focused more on, I guess, like chronic diseases, different conditions and things like that. But I think throughout the journey, trying to implement like certain activities, you can also meet new people that way, create a bigger circle, a bigger community, for sure. And I also think with just the whole balance of it all, one thing I had struggled with this whole delayed gratification is, I think during the time where I was like debating one extra year or not, I really had a bad concept about age in general, and I don't know if there's other young students who relate with this. I had this concept of, okay, well, if I'm at a certain age, I'm not gonna, be feeling great or, be feeling like the most energetic. And that's true to some degree and extent, but I've known people who are 40 years old. They were a flight attendant for most of their life, and they just started medical school. So there's also like the other flip side of it where, sometimes you're not really sure at the moment, but I guess it's never too late to, once you identify your passions and goals and you're able to get yourself on that path, it's also not too late. So don't worry if you're like in your 30s, late 20s or anything like that. Like there's still time, and I think that's kind of what I struggled with. Like you can still have life outside of that, and that's sort of what we've been talking about throughout this whole time. Is that, taking in the little moments, it's about that balance, essentially, I think, is what we're coming to this conclusion to.
Yeah.
And I think for me, just remembering that, everyone has a slightly different path. And if yours is longer, as long as you have that confidence and that certainty that that's something you want to do, then like that's also a beautiful path. You're going to meet a bunch of people throughout your whole entire journey who are coming from different angles, different perspectives and experiences. And I think that's like one of the most amazing things about this for me so far, is meeting all these people and like yourself sharing your perspectives, and I'm learning so much. But we could go on and talk about this and share more stories, but that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching Sedaye Daneshjoo.